Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the Sons of Liberty Gunworks Lone Star Edition rifle. If you are exacting and very particular about your AR platform rifles and features and things that go into them, and quality of parts and quality of build, you're probably familiar with the Sons of Liberty Gunworks name, especially if you interact with the P&S community or some kind of derivative of that. Mike Michalski over at Sons of Liberty Gunworks has pretty much established himself as a well-known subject matter expert on what makes the AR platform great. So when I kind of always wanted one, but when I finally decided to pick up a Sons of Liberty Gunworks rifle, I tried to temper my bias to expect the rifle good and remain as objective as possible for review, because I wanted to see, did the product match, the knowledge that Mike has been able to put out there about what makes an AR good, what parts, what materials, what features going into make the AR great. Because there's a lot of different furniture options out there, but the basic functionality of the direct impingement AR remains the same. So if you have a quality rifle, or you know where to get quality parts, what can actually set a company apart when it comes to building the rifle versus you sourcing all the correct components yourself and doing your own assembly. The first thing I appreciated about the Sons rifle is it's kind of a no frills unless you want frills. You go on the website to order your rifle and you get to kind of, basically build the rifle you want with the features you want. So you can save money in places where you feel like maybe you already have an ambi charging handle if that's what you want, safe, you're going to do your own stuff, or certain things don't necessarily appeal to you, so you don't necessarily want to spend money on them. One of the things I've always not liked about ordering rifles on the website is sometimes the manufacturer says this is what we're going to give you, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't want that. I want something else. And it could be something as simple as a safety selector or a trigger. You've been following me for a while, I'm not a huge fan of ambi charging handles or ambi safeties, so I like the option, when possible, to avoid those when ordering guns. Another thing that appealed to me about Sons of Liberty Gunworks is there isn't a lot of posturing in their designs. They didn't try to set themselves apart by going with something, I wouldn't say not necessarily unproven, but some kind of lower receiver or upper receiver design that's going to be like, hey, look at me, I've got these cool lines. The upper receiver still does the same thing that all upper receivers do, but it looks cooler. So when I ordered my Lone Star rifle, I'm getting an upper or lower receiver that are forged, and I'm getting Sons M76 wedge lock rail. I do like the wedge lock rail. I started using, the first rifle I should say I had a wedge lock rail with was the FN DMR2, and I like the overall design and the streamlined features that you get from a wedge lock rail, as well as kind of a reduced circumference. Some rails can be a little bit too beefy, a little bit too thick. So as far from an ergonomic standpoint, the rail definitely appeals to me. M-LOK has become pretty much standardized at this point. You don't see key mod a whole lot anymore. And even though I think, like a lot of people, I started out with key mod because for a while there it was really, really popular, I have gotten to the point now where I kind of default to the M-LOK system. So the Lone Star rifle, like all of their rifles, comes with, as an option anyway, you don't necessarily have to get a free flow M-LOK rail, but it's definitely an option you can pursue. Now, I originally purchased the Lone Star. I purchased it a pistol, and then I went ahead and SBR'd it, mainly because I was running a magnified optic on it, and so you can get some raised eyebrows from certain government agencies if you run a magnified optic on a pistol brace rifle. Hopefully that doesn't become a problem if people would stop writing letters. But that's not the topic of this video. The topic of this video is Sons of Liberty, does it live up to the hype? And it's not a widespread hype, because I think Sons of Liberty Gunworks only has hype in certain circles that are very, very particular about the functionality of their rifle. Kind of more of a hard use or duty grade or non-hobbyist approach to the AR platform. And that's something that I like to see. Now, don't get me wrong, I really do appreciate, even though it's not something I would necessarily do myself, but I really do appreciate some of the imagination that goes into some of these rifles out there, going back to when the Cobalt Kinetics was the big topic of controversy, but also guys that are just like, hey, you know what, I want a flaming pink lower with a bright red upper, with a lime green rail, and with a blueberry colored stock. That's cool. I wouldn't do it, but I appreciate that we're able to do things like that, and people are able to make choices like that. But with the Sons rifle, I kind of look at them like this is a rifle specifically for people who are going to purchase it for duty use, and or for serious home defense use and people who regularly attend technique and fundamental training classes. So if you're not familiar with my review process, the initial review is 2,000 rounds to get a really good feel for the gun. The very first thing I'm going to do with any firearm or most firearms accessories in a review is, after I've got them zeroed and dialed in, or I've got the accessory properly mounted, I'm going to go ahead and do a 500 round burn down. Purpose of the burn down is an accelerated rate of fire. A lot of rifles can handle 500 rounds, but can they handle 500 rounds as quickly as possible? This is going a little bit outside the realm of reasonability, but not necessarily into the land of I'm purposely trying to destroy the product. So I'm going to do 500 rounds, semi-auto only, and we're going to see how the Suns rifle holds up. First to last round did as expected. I didn't have any strange behaviors from my bolt carrier group, my gas block, or the rifle in general. It got hot because 500 rounds is going to get a rifle really, really hot. But I didn't have anything break free, come loose, or otherwise behave in ways that it wouldn't necessarily behave if I just fired the rifle at a more pedestrian pace, or if it was a rifle I only got to because of budgetary concerns or just my general life. Was only able to shoot a couple hundred rounds a month, or for some people maybe even a couple hundred rounds a year. So that 500 round burn down went really, really well, which is exactly what I would have expected from a rifle from a company that has the reputation and the pedigree as Sons of Liberty. The first 500 round burn down really helped me get a feel for the general quality of the rifle. I don't like using terms like fit and finish because that's kind of nebulous. But what I will say is just my experience with the AR platform throughout my career, there are certain areas in the rifle where I can tell manufacturers have decided, well, that's not a critical part, or maybe that's just not important. I mean, even down to the staking of the castle nut, you can tell that Sons of Liberty is like, okay, our end user may be using this rifle for just a bit more than hobby shooting or range shooting. So let's make sure that castle nut is never going to come loose. And I don't like using words like never declaratively, but as realistically as I can say never going to come loose, because they're like, hey, let's make sure it doesn't. And they went literally a step above what is considered to be standard acceptable practice of staking and staked it a few more times. And that's a small attention to detail, but it's something that appeals to me because I can't think of off the top of my head a whole lot of other rifle companies that are like, yeah, we're going to do that too. Now you may see some people come along later and do the exact same thing, but this is the first rifle that I personally own where they're like, yeah, we're going to make sure that castle nut is secure. Same thing goes for the bolt carrier group, staking those carrier keys. Some manufacturers just get bolt carriers from a third party, and there's nothing wrong with that because not everybody can manufacture their own stuff. But sometimes they just throw them in the rifle without necessarily doing a lot of QC to them. In this situation, you've got a bolt carrier group that has definitely, you can just tell by the attention put into making sure it was properly staked, making sure it was good to go before they threw it in the rifle. There's staking and then there's staking, and this comes with a lot of parts. And one of the places that I see DI rifles fail, when I do see them fail, and it's not often because I see a lot of quality rifles come through classes, but the gas key is a place where there's a lot of friction, a lot of heat, and a lot of force taking place every single time I pull that trigger. So it's some place that I think all rifle manufacturers should pay attention to, but not all of them do equally. Sons is definitely a company that's like, okay, hey, this is a place we kind of know what we're doing with. We got a reputation that we have to work on, but more importantly, we want to make sure that the rifle from us functions, because that's exactly what people expect. I've found myself liking the 12-inch barrel more and more and more. I've used 10s in the past. I've never really used an AR shorter than 10.5. Actually, I think I had one that was 10.3, but it didn't stick around for very long. 12-inch guns, I still expect a reasonable degree of accuracy. My personal feeling is only accurate rifles are interesting, and I only want to use accurate rifles, even if it's something I don't shoot past 25, 50, or 100 yards very, very often. Now, I don't expect, just based on a 12-inch gun, this to maintain, I guess, what would some consider to be lethal feet per second out to 600-700 meters. but I do expect it to be accurate in the distances I reasonably expect to shoot in. With this particular rifle and the ranges I have available to me, it's very easy for me to shoot out to 250, 300 yards, 300 meters, depending on how you want to metric or empirical system that. Is there accuracy going to be there? Well, I went with a magnified optic on this optic for the, or I say on this rifle for the review purposes, and I zeroed it 100 yards. So here is my 100-yard group firing 77 grain Black Hills. Just based on my feeling that only accurate rifles are interesting, this makes the Suns rifle very, very interesting to me and makes me really confident in my purchase. I expect at least an MOA of accuracy out of an AR platform rifle. I think with the barrels that are available today, the QC that's available today, all the lessons learned of those that came before us, there's literally no excuse whatsoever for you to purchase a rifle that cannot shoot at least an inch group at 100 meters. There are some budget rifles out there that they skimp and they cut corners and they end up with a rifle that shoots 1.5 or 2 inches, and that's just completely unacceptable. You can get a very reasonably priced barrel if you're doing your own builds that's still capable of shooting 1-inch groups. Now realistically, are you ever going to need that accuracy? I hope not, but if you do, it's nice to know it's there. And me personally, and this is just me being very specific about what I like to see, I like my bullet holes to almost touch each other, or touch each other as tight as possible, so I can see the consistency of the 5 rounds fired. And just during my own personal practice, if I shoot a bad group, I know it's not the gun. Using the Suns rifle in my personal practice, as well as teaching a little bit with it over the 2,000 rounds. I used it for some night vision, some low light, not really rifle specific, but I did set it up to cover a multitude of uses. Went ahead and put an LA5 on it, plus a magnified optics, got some off-axis 45-degree sights. Went with a Surefire muzzle device so I could run my Surefire cans. I prefer to run the Surefire suppressors dedicated for 5.56 223. I still love 30 cal cans, don't get me wrong, because I still have guns that shoot a 30 caliber bullet. But when it comes to 5.56, I want to run a 5.56 dedicated diameter suppressor. And Surefire has definitely been one of my favorite suppressors for that caliber. The rifle handles being suppressed very, very well. I didn't really notice a change in performance suppressed versus unsuppressed. I didn't get any strange gas behaviors, which on a DI gun, they can be very, very finicky when you throw a suppressor on them, especially Surefires. I have some rifles, some of my precision guns, that when I throw a Surefire can on them, I start getting blown out primers every now and then, just based on the pressure relationship that's taking place in the gun. The suppressor does generally improve accuracy somewhat, but it's not a good trade-off if the suppressor starts to cause malfunctions. And the whole point of suppressing a rifle is to not worry about malfunctions, is to make the gun, relatively speaking, be quieter. So any rifle I have at some point is probably going to get a suppressor on it. And if it doesn't function reliably with a suppressor, then that bothers me, because manufacturers should be aware that their customers will maybe suppress their rifle. I didn't try other suppressors with it, just because I'm not going to change out a bunch of muzzle devices just to see if the rifle's going to function with every single suppressor that I have. But it did work very, very well with the Surefire Mini SOCOM 2 and the regular RC2 SOCOM 2, regular full-length size, if you will. Didn't have to change buffers, didn't have to mess with anything. I think their gas port is appropriately sized for suppressed and unsuppressed use. My final verdict on the Suns rifle is get one. Definitely get one. If you're in the market for a rifle, just get a Suns. I think that the value is there. The price points are not ridiculous. You're not getting a lot of frills. So if you're looking for something that's going to stand out on Instagram, maybe Suns isn't the look for you. But if you're looking for a rifle that's going to perform well in a multitude of environments and maintain a high degree of accuracy with a high degree of reliability, then get a Suns rifle. You can get the features that you want necessarily, rail length, whatever trigger you want, whatever safety you want, whatever charging handle you want, whatever color you want. You can get them as pistols, you can get them as traditional length. They also have their own proprietary Knox muzzle device, so if you run dead air cans, you can get a 13.7 or a 14.5 pinned, so you don't have to go the NFA SBR route. They're great guns. This is probably the first time I've been this excited about just a regular DI gun in a very, very long time. And when I reach for a DI rifle, it's definitely going to be this one or one of the other Suns rifles I'm probably going to buy in the future. I like the attention to detail. I like the fact that I think it complements just my mentality well, that somebody put that much attention to detail, and even the smallest things down to detents and screws and stakings, and the relationship between different types of metals at heat tolerances and things of that nature. So I think Sons of Liberty is doing great things. And another thing that really appeals to me about Sons, not necessarily based on the rifle, but just based on the company philosophy, is I don't know a whole lot of other companies with the same footprint in the firearms industry as Sons that are as outspoken advocates of the Second Amendment. Even if they made a slightly less good rifle, I would probably still support them, because they are very, very outspoken in the support of rights, not only in Texas, but just nationwide. I don't know a whole lot of people who get out there and actually attend the meetings and the town hall meetings and the rallies and make commentary non-negotiable when it comes to the Second Amendment. And I think there's some companies that hedge their bets or ride the fence because they're worried about government contracts, or they're worried about the optics of being pro-Second Amendment, when they forget that their business is ultimately supported largely by the average everyday shooter, not a one-time government purchase that may or may not happen. The Second Amendment is the whole reason I'm making this video. It's the whole reason I'm able to make this video. So from a philosophical and from an American standpoint, I would support them just for that. It's cool that not only are they such outspoken 2A advocates, but they make a fucking awesome rifle. So I'm going to continue to support Sons of Liberty Gunworks, and I'm going to continue to recommend people to buy them, and I'll probably keep buying them myself. I'm Eric Allen with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.